unemployment insurance. We now have, because of 1 month of improving employment numbers, but still horrendous employment numbers in this country. 200 and addition of maybe 230,000 jobs, but 450,000 plus off the top of my head, still looking for new unemployment support. We have still, I think, 8 million plus who are unemployed relative to where we were a year and a half ago or so. But now Republican governors have determined that it is time to get rid of that supplemental unemployment insurance and drive people, into work, because that's why they're not working, is because they're getting too much money. Now, let's play. We have 2 clips here in a row, and then we'll address the BS behind the idea that people are getting paid too much to go back into not work. And that's what's going on, rather than just suddenly people are just being able to, have some subsistence. Here is Governor Henry McMaster, a Republican from South Carolina.
Tucker, this is about as close to socialism as anything I've seen. The federal government's just taking over, just throwing money at people. I don't know how we're going to spend all of this. That's why we can't. This cannot be done. But we're not going to take that unemployment money to pay people for not working. We got help wanted signs up everywhere.
Medicaid, incidentally, South Carolina still has not provided expanded Medicaid for its poor citizens. Let's hear from Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson.
Explain to me how and why you reached this decision to halt the enhanced unemployment benefits.
Well, the extra compensation was very helpful during the dark days of the pandemic when unemployment rates were so high. But now our economy has come back. We have jobs aplenty. We have employers that are begging workers to come to their place of business, and we cannot pay extra compensation for workers to stay home. We need them in the place of employment. And so that's the simple rationale for it.
It doesn't necessarily square with what they're eventually going to try to claim, which is that Biden did a poor job on bringing the economy back. But I guess their politics of controlling the working class and kind of forcing them back into jobs that may not necessarily be safe quite yet, that takes precedence.
Well, yes, of course. And of course, we're riding the Trump wave here. But the bottom line is that more people have gone back in low wage jobs than higher wage jobs, which cuts against the argument that people are staying home because they're getting more money from unemployment. We also still have extant the idea of like, what are we doing about childcare? Children are still susceptible to COVID. We only have one vaccination that is for kids 12 and older at this point, as of yesterday, and you still have a lot of people who are unvaccinated, and kids, 15% of kids who get COVID will have long haul COVID, and it's just a matter of time. It's, that these kids are going to get infected here. So you've got daycare issues there, and you've got workplaces. But this is really just ultimately about we're going to starve you until you come into work type of situation, and we don't want to raise wages. Well, there you go. Everybody's nodding, so I must be well.
I'm afraid to go off mute, guys.
Yeah, I mean, he's like, we can't do that. And it's like, it's just not true. You're like, where's the receipt? How much money does this actually cost? This barely costs money. So let's they should just be more clear about won't versus can't versus don't want to. What is it that you think they're actually afraid of here? I think they're afraid that people will take a pause to take what they've learned in the pandemic, which is, a re-evaluation of themselves and their job, profits and their family, and put that into practice in the workplace. I mean, we need to change our workplaces. And when is that going to happen? When people are back at work together and before things get seriously started. And that gray area needs to be funded, needs to happen. Otherwise, we're just blindly jumping into the same broken thing. And the next pandemic is going to hit us even worse because we're going to want to mask up even less.
I also wonder, like, how does this work in South Carolina? I mean, if you're, is there a single person on unemployment in South Carolina who's going to vote for a Republican, or in Arkansas? I mean, but what? I mean, I know you're nodding, and I know that is true that they're going to, but how do you do that?
Well, that's the magical thinking of Republicans, and what runs so like that's his space is figuring out how to magically think the population. What Emma said is spot on. Like, this is what they're doing. They're the same people who are anti-maskers are now wearing masks to fight the vaccine. I don't even know what they're doing. It's mental gymnastics turned into marketing, and they'll do whatever they can to make sure that they keep that solidified, uninformed base who is buying into the bullshit that's happening in the Alex Jones universe, and they'll justify it. I mean, this isn't new. We all know this. This is what they've been doing for decades.
Part of it too is that they stoke the culture war. I mean, we talked about this with Medicaid expansion. They make it an us versus them in some states like South Carolina, specifically in Mississippi. I think we discussed with you, Nomi, as well, just about how they kind of make it into takers and non-takers. And even if you were on unemployment and you were a white person in South Carolina, you know what they mean by the takers and the non-takers. And also the fact that, this supplemental unemployment insurance, we talked about how in Massachusetts, that's the highest one that's buttressed by the state. South Carolina, Arkansas, Montana, these states that are getting rid of the federal unemployment, they are not even coming close to the supplementary unemployment that we're seeing in states like Massachusetts. So you can't even make the argument, even though you hear on Fox News, people making $50,000, $60,000 a year on unemployment. They probably found like 1 or 2 cases of that in rich blue states. Not the case in these states.
It's like the shrimps on a treadmill. Remember when they would get obsessed with like government spent $100,000 studying shrimp running on treadmills? Remember that?
Something like this, yeah.
Right.
Vaguely.
Well, I mean, if you're in the shrimping industry, you're probably excited about that data.
Well, Forrest Gump is just cheering from the sidelines.